Okay, guys, girls, boys, ladies, let's get started on the new chapter. Okay, so we're going to look at economic cost. Before we do this chapter, I'm going to break it down into a couple of parts. But what I want you to understand is this chapter is extremely important. If I had to pick the most important chapter in micro, this would be the one. Okay, there's the saying that the house is only as strong as the foundation. Okay, so for micro, this is the foundation. If you don't get this topic, you will be in trouble the rest of the way. We're going to do some graphs in here that are going to be the graphs for the whole course. Right, so it's not meant to scare you, it's just meant to prepare you, get you ready to focus on this. If you have to, watch it a couple of times so that you get those concepts, bring the questions into me in class, and let's get going with this, all right? So we look at economic cost, we're looking at the payment that we have to make, okay, to obtain the services of a resource, right? So we're either looking to get the resource or keep the resource. What do you mean by resources, Mr. Mooney? Well, what do I mean? I mean labor, I mean capital, I mean entrepreneur, I mean land, all those kinds of things. Those are what we call explicit cost. Okay, explicit costs are the monetary payments I make for land, labor, entrepreneur, right? All of us understand those. The other cost that we look at is what's called an implicit cost, right? What are we giving up to do this? So if I'm working at your store, I'm not working at another store, that's what I'm giving up. If I go to college, and maybe this is the best way for you to understand it, especially since most of you are going to college. If you're going to college, and the college, let's say, costs $50,000, right? Everyone says, well, that's the cost of going to school. I add up my books, I add up my tuition, what it costs to fly back and forth or wherever it is, and that's what it costs me to go to school, $50,000. No one ever talks about what you give up to go to college. You gave up working. Now, granted, you wouldn't be making much money, but let's say you gave up a job of $25,000. Well, the explicit cost of college is $50,000. The implicit cost is $25,000. College is costing you $75,000. Why do you do it then? Is because when you get out of college, you're hoping to make more than you did when you went in. You're hoping to make that $25,000, $50,000. It's the reason LeBron James didn't go to college. It's the reason Michael Jordan left college after his junior year. It's the reason Tiger Woods left college after sophomore year. Because what they were giving up by staying in college, they were never going to get back. LeBron James playing in college wasn't going to make him more than the $90 million sneaker deal that he got, right? And there are some computer programmers in high school who actually can make more money by going to work in the computer industry rather than going to college, right? So I want you to keep that in mind. We'll talk about it a little bit more in class, all right? So we're looking at the value of the next best use, and we're talking about self-owned resources. And we're including normal profit in that, all right? And you'll understand all that as we go through this. So first thing we want to look at is accounting profit and normal profit, right? Counting profit, we take the revenue, right? So you own a pizza place. I own a pizza place. At that pizza place, I am ringing up every slice I sell, every calzone, every meatball parm, eggplant parmesan, and every soda that I sell. That's my revenue. Those are my sales, revenue, same thing. My revenue minus what it cost me for the cheese, the worker, the capital. All those things. I add up all those explicit costs. I minus them from what I brought in, and that is my accounting profit. That's what I've earned from opening my pizza place. So we have revenue minus explicit cost. But an economist, myself included, says, no, you can't just count what I paid for the workers, what I paid for the resources, what I paid for the machine. I got to think about, what did it cost me? What did I give up to run this pizza place? Right? So we're going to look at accounting profit, which is accounting profit minus the implied cost. Right? So here's what I want you to think about. I decide to follow my dream and open up a pizza place. First year, right, I make $150,000 in sales. Revenue's $150,000. I pay $75,000 for labor, capital, the cheese, the sauce, nuts to bolts. I pay $75,000.
My accounting profit is $75,000. My accountant calls me up, says, "Hey, great news! You made $75,000 this year." Me being the economist and having an economics degree says, "Hold on. What did I give up to open the pizza place?" Well, I left my teaching job. Let's say my teaching job pays me $100,000. That's the implicit cost. So you take the accounting profit of $75,000 minus the implicit cost, my salary at Great Neck, the $100,000, and I'm actually left with a negative $25,000. So I left my job, ran a pizza place, and I am $25,000 less than I was the year before. Now, there's a whole bunch of things you could say. I'm happier. I don't have to deal with students anymore and things like that. Okay, but none of those are going into this right now. I just want you to understand that we always have to look at the cost of the entrepreneur. Every accountant says add up capital, add up labor, add up natural resources. They all say that. 4 factors of production, add up 3 of them. The cost of 3 of them. They never say add up the cost of the entrepreneur. You must add up the cost of the entrepreneur. Okay, so let's look at economic profit to summarize. We take total revenue minus economic cost. Total revenue minus explicit cost minus implicit cost. So if you want to see this graphically or in the chart, the one on the right is total revenue, and then we take accounting profit and cost, only explicit cost. On the right, you notice the accounting profit is a little bit smaller than the economic profit's a little bit smaller than the accounting profit because we added in our implicit cost. All right, couple things now. We want to look at short run and long run. So when we're talking about business, we say the business is either in the short run or the business is in the long run. Okay, there's no set time on this. This is a concept. It's an economic concept that we look at. Short run says that we have variable inputs. I can hire 3 workers. I can add a 4th worker. I can lay a worker off. I'm going to buy a certain amount of cheese. I'm going to buy a certain amount of sauce, depending on how many I'm selling. So those are variable inputs. Okay. The key, though, is that there is something fixed. In the short run, one of your inputs is fixed. It's usually your capital. Right? So if I'm going to open up my pizza place, if I sell 0 slices of pizza, I don't have any variable costs. I don't pay for the workers. I don't pay for the sauce. I don't pay for the cheese. I do, however, pay for the fixed plant. I have to pay the rent to the landlord. Okay, so short run says one of your inputs is fixed. When all of your inputs are variable, then we say you are now in the long run. So when that fixed plant here becomes a variable plant, now you're in the long run. That's how we tell the difference. We don't say it's 6 months or a year. We say when all inputs are variable, you're in the long run. When some of your inputs are variable, except for 1 or 2 that are fixed, you are then said to be in the short run. Right, so those are the differences, and that's going to be very important because we're going to have to focus on what do I do in the short run? Do I continue to produce? Do I not continue to produce? So let's look at short run production relationships. All right, so first thing we're going to look at, just like we looked at total utility, we're going to look at total product. How many slices of pizza am I making? How many additional slices of pizza am I making? How do I get marginal product? I get marginal product by putting the change in total product over the change in labor input. So if my first worker makes me 20 pies, then I hire a second worker and I get a total of 50 pies. What was the marginal product of the second worker? Well, the first worker got 20 pies, then my total was 50 pies, which means the marginal product of the second worker was 30 pies. Now, does that mean the second worker is 10 pies better than the first worker? Not necessarily. What that says is the workers specialized. One worker said, look, you roll out the dough, I'll sauce and cheese, and then we'll just slide them into the oven.
rather than I'll roll, I'll cheese, I'll sauce, we're going to specialize each thing. If you want a visual of this, think of Chipotle. When you go into Chipotle, everybody has their role right down the thing. One person doesn't make your whole burrito, so because they specialize, your marginal product increases. Okay? Then we look at average product, which is total product divided by the units of labor. So what's the average product of those two workers? Well, total product was 50, there was 2 workers. Average product is 25. Marginal product of the second worker was 30. Average product at 2 workers, 25. Right, so now we want to look at this, okay, and we want to graph it. So what we're going to do first is on the top, we're going to have my total product, right? And we remember that we said there is the law of diminishing utility, there is the law of diminishing returns. As I hire more workers, each worker gets me more until space becomes too tight and the next worker starts to get me less, right? So I got 20 from the first worker, 30 from the second, then I'm at 90, so I got 40 from the third, but then I go back to 30 from the fourth worker, and then 20. And why is that? That is because the space that they're working in, the fixed plant, becomes so tight that it's hard for them to produce as much as before. Okay, so total product is increasing, right? In the beginning here in the yellow section, we have increasing returns, then we have diminishing returns, and then we go to negative returns. Okay, so from between 2 and 3 workers, each worker is getting me more than the last worker. Between 3 and 7 workers, I'm getting more total product, but at a slower rate, right? Or a lower rate, I should say. So if you notice, that's when marginal product peaks right here. Okay? So the increasing here corresponds with this, and the decreasing corresponds with this. All right, so now let's look at this, and we have marginal product intersecting average product. I want you to look at that, and I want you to think about at what point on the average product curve is the marginal product intersecting it. Okay, so marginal product intersects average product at what point on the average product's curve? That's the last bit that we're going to talk about. Okay, and then tomorrow we will focus on some costs. But I want you to think about that question about marginal product intersects average product at which point. Okay, have a good night, boys, girls, ladies, gentlemen.